To pull everyday citizens out of the transactional world and into pure mathematics, you must establish a stark physical presence. You will need a large, high-quality literal chalkboard, an open sunlit thoroughfare to serve as your terrace, a deep working knowledge of general topology, and a specific printed framework. This document is the Personas of Arithmetic. It lists 17 axiomatic statements that establish the moral foundation of the mathematical universe. You must print this and attach it to your office door or physical board. Physically displaying these rules creates an immediate boundary. It initiates your separation from the digital sphere and marks the beginning of the transition into elite mathematical research. Looking at the top of this list at Persona 0, we see the statement, "The empty set captures the void." The empty set is not the void. Every morning, you will write exactly one of these statements in large, clear lettering at the top of your board. This establishes your immovable anchor. When pedestrians stop to look, or when cynics approach to call you crazy, step aside. Do not engage in defensive rhetorical arguments or emotional pleading. Instead, execute the direct engagement protocol. Hand them a piece of chalk. Ask them a single spatial grounding question. Challenge them to draw a boundary around nothing. Force their mind out of verbal debate and directly into logical action upon the slate. As the instructor, you must take an ascetic vow. You will abstain entirely from all worldly, finite discourse. Do not speak of politics, pop culture, or commerce. You are to speak exclusively of pure mathematics. There is only one exception to this vow. You may use non-mathematical analogies, such as comparative theology or psychology, strictly and immediately to map a listener's existing mental framework onto the rigid axioms of set theory. Total abstention from the noise of the world acts as a magnetic beacon of absolute certainty. It strips away distractions and forces the participant entirely into a framework of pure logic. Step 1 in teaching the material is applying the strict Moore method. Under no circumstances should you lecture the participant. Give them the axioms of Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory. Provide the axiom of extensionality and the axiom of the empty set, and require them to draw out the proofs themselves. Guide them to manually construct natural numbers out of absolute nothingness. Start with the empty set for 0, then encapsulate it to build 1, 2, and 3. Ensure they physically contrast the board's borderless void with the drawn null set. Keep them working until they cross a critical conceptual threshold. They must independently realize why no finite set is good. This independent realization of the transfinite is the necessary bedrock. Until they recognize the infinite on their own terms, they cannot proceed to map the geometry of reality. Now that we have established discrete logic, transition the student to macroscopic geometry. Use Stephen Willard's framework of general topology to guide them in mapping the infinite. Looking closely at the Personas document, Rules 3 and 4 outline the mechanics of topological filters. Teach the student to draw open sets on the board to map out the absolute necessity of upward closure and how intersections synthesize truth. Topology must be understood purely at its foundation here. Do not teach this through the lens of metric spaces, and do not entertain early transcendentals during this phase. Eventually, the student will hit a logical wall or a paradox they cannot immediately solve. True enlightenment cannot be achieved in a single afternoon. When they fail, take a large eraser and wipe the board completely clean. Do not give them the answer. Tell them only that the terrace will be waiting here under the sun tomorrow, and they must return with the proof. By denying an immediate answer, you hook their innate human compulsion for logical resolution. They will return to the chalkboard day after day, progressively climbing the ordinal ladder. The ultimate goal of this dissemination is not philosophical agreement, it is mathematical generation. The terrace succeeds only when the participant transitions from student to peer, picking up the chalk to contribute novel, rigorous, pure mathematics research. At graduation, they must leave your space, erect their own physical chalkboard under the open sun, and repeat the cycle with the next citizen. Recall that the pure mathematician tends to the tree of knowledge, but does not eat, because he is not hungry. By adhering strictly to these concrete mandates, you completely bypass the finite noise of the world and successfully initiate a self-replicating engine of pure mathematics.